Read a book. Your stupid is showing.
Why am I shaking? I'm gonna put the candle here today. And for the next probably 2 years of these videos, I'm gonna just drink water because I have Invisalign now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Kakes Talks Books, where I talk about books. Yay! I'm really excited to film this video. I even got into a theme. I'm wearing my little sundress, well, my bathing suit cover, because today's video is all about summer reads, and it is literally Halloween today. But tell me why it's 20 degrees. Like, it felt like the universe wanted me to film this video today because it's literally 20 degrees. Fall is in full swing here in Montreal, but we get a little respite only today, the day I film my summer reads video. So I feel like this is a sign. The last time I filmed a video, my previous video, which was sort of a mid-year review, I filmed it July 1st or July 3rd, but posted it just a few weeks ago. Please go watch it if you haven't already. So it's been a really long time I haven't done a sit-down book video with you guys. It's been October, like 4, and we're about to be November. Yeah, it's been 4 months I haven't filmed a book video, but I've been reading a lot, hence like I'm catching up slowly. And I thought, should I just like not post it? But you know what, I read these 3 books, I have some stuff to say, and I feel like it's summer somewhere. Or if it's not summer, I know some people live in places it's always hot, so you can still like enjoy summer vibes. Or even if you're in Canada like me and it's not hot, you can escape using these summer reads and pretend it's 30 degrees or 25 degrees and you're on the beach. So let's get started, shall we? First of all, before we even start with the books, what am I looking for when I'm talking about a beach read? These 3 books I picked up looking to read a beach read, or at least a summer read. And I'll just tell you what I meant when I thought of that, because it'll give you context as to how I kind of reviewed the books and how I rated them. Because sometimes a book you'll see was very good, but it didn't give it didn't give beach read. When I say beach read, I'm looking for a book that gives 25 degrees plus, sunny, no clouds, I'm on a beach, feet in the sand, bright bathing suit, beach cover up, a little breeze, nothing but the sound of like birds and waves crashing on the shore as a soundtrack while I'm reading a book. Chef's kiss. When I tell you that's what I'm looking for in a beach read, that's what I'm looking for. And like for the content, something light, maybe funny, a romance for sure. Yeah, if I didn't mention, this is all gonna be romance. Like a rom-com that is set in a similar like environment. Yeah, just something fun and light. So that's what I was looking for when I went into these books. If you've read some of these, you're already thinking, oh boy, she did not know what she was getting into. You'll have noticed by looking at the thumbnail of this video. I don't have this 3rd book with me right now because I returned it to the library. But what do these books have in common? And the 3rd one here. Like, is it the same cover artist? I don't know. But they definitely give off the vibe I just said, right? Right? But I feel like some of these books, the content does not give off this vibe. So I have been catfished. And I'll talk about that just a little bit more. So enters the 3 books I chose for this video. The first was Happy Place by Emily Henry. Talked about so much. I think it won Best Romance of 2023 in the Goodreads Award. Recently on a flight of mine, actually, someone was reading this, so still very popular. But she has a book that's literally called Beach Read. Maybe I should have read that. Second one is more recently going sort of viral, Just for the Summer by Jimenez. And the third one I don't have with me right now, but it's Just for the Summer. Like I said, I read it from the library once again. And I had to return it because it was pretty popular. These ones weren't like on hold by anyone else. I think they're old enough. I'll talk about these 3 books today. And again, if I look down once in a while, it's my phone, or this is my notes for this video. Because I came prepared this time. I rewatched my last video and was so annoyed with myself because I wasn't prepared. I was just like freeballing the whole thing, which a lot of you still appreciate, and I appreciate that so much. But I do really want to up the quality of my videos as my channel like progresses. And yeah, you guys that are here in the beginning will be able to see my progress, hopefully, and be proud of me. All right, so book number 1 is Happy Place by Emily Henry. She's an American author. This book came out April 2023. It won the Best Romance Novel of 2023 in the Goodreads Choice Awards. So very popular book. About 400 pages, 385-ish. According to various sources, it's either her 7th or 8th book, I believe. I'm not sure. If you know for sure, please tell me in the comments. And it was published by Berkeley Books. It's a contemporary adult romance. And what's it about? So basically, how do you hide the fact that you and your fiance have just broken up like 6 months ago to your best friends on a yearly cottage trip that you guys have been taking for years? How do you do that? So that's what our main character, Harriet, has to ponder in the book Happy Place when she joins her friend group for probably their very last summer at this cottage. This cottage is owned by Sabrina, one of the girls in the friend group's father, but he's about to sell it. So it's very nostalgic for the whole friend group, and Harriet and Justin both don't really want to break the news of their breakup to their friend groups on this like very last holiday, and they just feel like it's not the right time to tell their friends. But at the same time, if they're pretending to still be engaged, you know, they're gonna have to sleep in the same room and pretend that they're still in love, and like, you know, they're a very touchy couple, and they're gonna have to keep up this ruse for a whole week in front of their very best friends. So that's the premise. And to me, the story is very much about found families and what happens when you realize that you don't trust your friends as much as you want to believe, and how members of the found family are unable to trust each other with either secrets or hardships, and how do you navigate that as an adult. In general, also just staying friends with the same people you were when you were younger, and seeing how the relationship changes when you grow up, whether that's friends or lovers, and sort of coming to terms with those changes. And it's also about taking care and maintaining relationships beyond the honeymoon phase. So what happens when you face hardships and life's obstacles, grief, what happens to your relationships then? So yeah, all in all, very interesting themes. Okay, but when I said earlier that this book and another one in this list kind of catfished me, bright pink, people jumping in a lake, happy place, you know, fake dating, or like, I guess, second chance love trope, because they're like ex-fiancés. I felt it's gonna be like, oh, fun, maybe steamy. I don't know. Like, it was definitely, like I said, interesting themes, and I enjoyed that part of like exploring the relationships. But I don't know that, I think this cover kind of catfished me. It's very much more like deep than what I thought. Nothing wrong, obviously, with being more deep, but again, I'm coming from the context of finding the perfect beach read out of these 3 books. And just so you know, Book Lovers from Emily Henry is still one of my favorite romance books. So I knew that I sort of liked this author. I guess this gave me higher expectations coming into this book, so maybe that's a bit unfair. But personally, I definitely didn't like this as much as Book Lovers. I'll tell you why. First of all, the characters, there's way more, and it's about the same amount of pages in the book as Book Lovers, so inevitably you'll have less time to spend with each character. But the thing is, again, when I said the most interesting themes to me in this book, it's very much about those relationships between characters, but it felt like we didn't know them very well. They were a bit like unidimensional. And I understand it's one book, it's not a series, you don't have that much time, but I feel like if that's the case, maybe have less characters so we can go more in depth in each of them. What's his name? Wyndham. Like, we don't get much of his psyche and like what's going on in his head. It made him feel very, not just for that, but it just in general, he felt very like boring. sorry, Wynd, you're kind of boring. And another big thing that threw me off is the excessive dialogue tags, and I feel like that's very specific, but I do have a very specific example, and I think this is just writing style. It's nothing inherently wrong with it, but again, this is obviously biased because it's an opinion-based review, So it's just to share this in case you feel the same. Blah, 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 blah. Busy, he guesses. Naked, I say. One and the same, he says. For you, I guess, I say. His brows crunches. What's that mean? I honestly don't know, I say. Blah, blah, blah. It's nothing, I say. Forget it. I won't. Blah, blah, blah. So it's very much like, he said, I say. He says, he amends. I doubt it. A lot. Personally, that throws me out of a book. It really does. I'm like, just didn't fit with the writing I like, personally. And since we're talking about it, I'll go more into like the writing itself. I honestly didn't have any issues with that in Book Lover, so I'm wondering if I've read more since, and maybe in general I don't like her style of writing, but no, I don't think it was that evident in Book Lovers. And again, it's been a very long time I didn't read that book. Sometimes it was a bit too descriptive for me. For instance, Wynn's eyebrow arches. He tugs on his mouth, revealing a sliver of glow-in-the-dark smile. That snow globe feeling hits where up is down and down is up and everything is either glitter or corn syrup. Blah, blah, it keeps going. Too many descriptions. Like, I don't need to know exactly what your smile does. Again, it was maybe me being a bit too picky, but I thought I'd let you know. And one last thing I'll say about the dialogue, just because I wrote it, I said dialogue is a bit too unnatural at times, maybe, like trying too hard to be funny, but it's tolerable enough because of the overall vacay, friend group, again, light summer read vibe of the book, to be honest. But the last thing that I didn't really like I already mentioned it really, but I felt like the love story between Harriet and Wynn, I just felt like Wynn was just there. He wasn't very interesting as a character to me. And the whole miscommunication trope. Have I read a book that it's been done well and I loved it? I don't know. So maybe again it's just a preference thing. But if you get annoyed with the miscommunication trope, this book might not be for you. Just from the premise what I told you earlier, the whole thing about them not telling your friends, already that's a big, miscommunication hint. What if they just told their friend, their best friends that they've known for years, like, hey guys, this is gonna be uncomfortable, we just broke up. There would be no book, so I understand that you have to put that miscommunication out there. But the biggest miscommunication that irks me in this book is between the two main characters. This is gonna be a common complaint, I think, from readers. Harriet and Wynn, and it's hard to be believable because they've been together for 8 years. Obviously, everybody's different, but I would think after that many years together, you guys would somehow communicate a little bit better. If you're like me, that might annoy you. Now, the good stuff, again, I really like the setting. I want to go to Maine now. I've been wanting to go. It's pretty close to Montreal, to Quebec in general. But yeah, this book makes you want to go to a lake, like a very nice lake with your rich friends. Yeah, the setting is very well done. And I remember really liking that about Book Lovers. I think the New York setting back then, I was like, wow, I love the way she writes setting. So a big plus that Emily Henry's books have in general. I don't know, I'd have to read more of hers. And I'd be open to reading more of her books, honestly. But yeah, I love the setting. It's very much giving beach read setting-wise. And like I said, again, the themes explored in regards to relationships growing up. I'm in my mid-late 20s now, so I could relate to some of those topics of conversation. I felt like that was, it's important to talk about those things. A lot of the books recently I've read is about that, so maybe it's just like I'm getting tired of reading the same things. But again, if it's the first book you read about these things, the themes are still very interesting, especially when talking about grief and dealing with grief. I think that's one of the themes that I personally never get tired of, because in life you'll deal with people that are going through loss and giving you different perspectives on how to deal with that or how to sit with that is, I think, always beneficial. So final closing thoughts for Happy Place by Emily Henry for me. Would I recommend this book? Maybe not, especially in the context of we're looking for fun beach reads. It was definitely less fun than I expected. I would say mostly because, again, we're reading this for the romance, right? And the stuff I liked the most was not the romance, like I said. So you could find great setting and those kind of themes in different books. So I personally wouldn't recommend it, but not a bad book, just not for me. I rated it a between a 2.5 and 3 stars, if I remember correctly. Oh, I rated a 3 out of 5. So yeah, a good book. Again, if you saw my previous video, you know that 3 for me is, it's good. It's a good book. It's not great. I probably would recommend some other books before this, but if you really like the positive points I talked about in this book and you feel like it could be a book for you, it's a good book. All right, enough about Happy Place. The second book in our list is Just for the Summer. It's a book by the American author Abby Jimenez, published by Forever in April 2024. So it actually came out very recently. When I looked this up, I was kind of surprised. It's 432 pages, and it is her 6th book. Again, the genre is fiction, adult contemporary romance. What is it about? So it's a story about Justin and Emma. He posts on Reddit one day. In a funny way, he kind of describes that he realized he's been a victim of a curse, where basically every girl he dates, after they break up, that girl moves on to find and most likely like marry the love of her life, literally, like her soulmate. So he's the bus stop on other people's one true love story, So it's great for them, not so much for him. And lo and behold, one day he receives a DM from our female main character, Emma, who has the same curse. So she realized that every guy she dates moves on, when they break up, moves on to find the love of his life. So they both have like this weird curse going on. They DM each other. They're like, hey, what if we both dated each other? And then technically when we break up, we'll both find our soulmates that'll kind of cancel out the curses. 5 head, like big math. So long story short, they decide to do that and test out their theory. But the thing is, as the story goes on, they quickly realize that this might be more complicated than they initially thought. Obviously, feelings probably get involved, but also for reasons related to each of their families. So very real life issues suddenly pop up for both of our characters, both Emma and Justin. And so they both kind of get entangled with each other's family issues, family hardships, and they have to sort of decide if they'll call it quits and forget this whole thing, or if it's worth maybe sticking around and see where the story might go. So that's sort of the summary of Just for the Summer. Let me tell you, I was on a roller coaster with this book. Similarly to Happy Place, this book deals with very, very heavy stuff. Not in the sense of like trigger warnings and whatnot. Actually, maybe if you have parents or a parent that's sort of maybe a narcissist or that is very much self-centered and that you felt left behind a lot, like that might be triggering to you. But other than that, it's not in that sense. I mean, it's heavy. It's that they're dealing with real life issues. They're late 20s, moving to like early 30s, they're both adults. Is this a spoiler? Okay, no, it's not. Justin, for some reason, he's gonna have to take guardianship of his 3 siblings. So he sort of becomes a stand-in dad very young, unprepared. So there's like, again, very real issues, kids are involved, parents are involved, while they're trying to figure out what relationship they're developing for each other. So I bit off more than I could chew with this, in terms of it not necessarily being like a very fun and light summer read. Again, I feel like I'm catfished by these book covers. But okay, why do I feel like it's a roller coaster? I almost DNF'd this book. I was so bored for a long time. Page 127, I was there in the book. I don't remember what happened at that time, but that's when I just wrote in my notes, okay, I'll just be honest, I'm getting bored. Something better happened. And that might just be a pacing issue, might not be. Like I said, I liked the way the dialogue was written, actually. I had no problem with the writing. I think it was maybe a pacing thing for me. When I was starting to get bored, then something happens, and there was a sort of little twist. And I'm like, okay, there was like a story and stuff. So, so it was definitely not a DNF. I did read the whole thing, but I was sort of on the fence for a long time until the very end. And surprisingly to me, like, I really loved the ending. I feel like that's often the hardest to nail in a book, but I was really satisfied with the ending without saying too much. So if you're like already reading this and you're thinking of DNFing it, don't. It's one of these rare books where I feel like it gets way better at the end. But if you haven't even picked it up already, I don't know if that ending is worth the rest of the book. If you're already not really liking it, maybe save yourself. That's my take on it. At first, I was gonna rate this book 2.5 out of 5. I remember, like, throughout the whole book, I was feeling like, it's a little bit under, like, good to me. You know, I was like, ugh. But then, because of the ending, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 3. I gave it I think 3.5 actually. Okay, for the sake of this book, I would rate it the same as Happy Place. Like, if you're looking for a summer read, once again, I would say it's 3. It's good, but it's not gonna be exactly what you're looking for. But as a book in general, I put it 3.5 because if you change your perspective and go in it as more of a book that explores attachment issues, like avoidant attachment, I think there's a very good representation of that in this book, which I haven't really read other books that do it that well. I think a main reason I didn't like it for a summer read is that the romance there between Justin and Emma wasn't completely there. It was very insta-lovey. Like, we didn't really go into why they like each other. It was very quick so that we can get to the other parts of the relationship, you know, which I honestly really get, especially with the end, like, because that's I think the point of the book. But then, if you're reading it for the romance only, I would say the same thing as Happy Place, or even more in this case. I don't think the romance plot was it, or like, it felt more like a subplot, definitely. The relationship between Emma and her mother, or Emma with others around her self-growth journey and her self-awareness journey was way more important, I felt like, than her romantic relationship with Justin. So it depends what you're reading the book for. I wrote, overall, I still dislike that the romance was definitely more of a subplot, but that's because I picked up the book thinking it'd be the main plot. So if you're thinking the same way, and if you're watching this video, you might be thinking the same way, you're really looking for a summer read, I don't think this one is it. But if you're reading it to go more into the psyche of Emma and of like attachment issues and growing up with absent parents or parents that are not giving you the love that you deserve and how that affects you in a relationship as you grow up, very good book for that, I think. So again, 3.5 out of 5 for me. But on our like summer read, beach read list, I wouldn't personally bring it on vacation. All right, now the third book that I do not have with me, which, surprise, surprise, I rated the highest, is This Summer Will Be Different by Carley Fortune. So This Summer Will Be Different, it is actually her third book, I believe. It was published by Berkeley, once again, on May 7th, 2024, so right after my birthday. What? So this one is the most recent. It's funny that I read them, or I presented them and read them in order of publishing date also. The most recent book, and it is set in the PEI, Prince Edward Island. And the reason, a little fun anecdote that I had put a hold on this book and was so excited was I planned the trip to PEI with my fiance. We were supposed to go there this summer. Something's happened with our schedules. We weren't able to go in the end. We canceled our accommodations and stuff. I was gonna read it in PEI. I was so excited to do that. It was going to be a bit corny and cliche, but I was still very excited to do that. But alas, I haven't been yet. I've been to PEI a few times for work. I fly there, but I haven't been like on vacation, like more than one little layover there. So if you're from there, especially now that I've read this book, I cannot wait to go. It seems so lovely. The way Carley Fortune writes about PEI is like beautiful. She really sets the setting well in the book. You really feel like you can see the sandy red cliffs and you're having oysters and it's calm and cute, and can't wait to go. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what this book is about. So Lucy, our main character, is a relatively new business owner from Toronto. She's a city girly, Toronto girl in her 20s. So you guess it. It's like city girl meets small town or small island boy. We love that trope. So she flies with her best friend Bridget to PEI, home of Bridget and her family. So she brings her for the first time on a girls' trip back to Bridget's home in PEI. And of course, in perfect rom-com fashion, Bridget's flight gets delayed to the next day, the day that they're supposed to go on the trip. So Lucy, our main character, is there at least for the first night alone. And being the woman that she is, she doesn't really want to, just because Bridget told her, just go to my parents' place, I'll tell you where the key is, let yourself in, I'll be there tomorrow. But in true Lucy fashion. She doesn't really want, she's a bit like fidgety and she wants to just walk around. The night is still young. So she goes to this local bar and there sees, I got the props for this. She sees Mr. Oyster Felix, so the local, a local oyster guy. He works in a restaurant at Shucking Oysters. And so she meets there at the bar, like she's at the bar alone. He's across from her doing his thing with the oysters and, you know, sparks are flying. Like, the hot local is there. So, obviously, we're all grown. One thing leads to another. She goes back to his place, you know, and Lucy gets the best welcome ever to PEI. Until she realizes this a little too late, that Felix is her best friend, Bridget's younger brother. Yeah, so that's sort of the premise. And this happened like years ago. So during the story, we're like jumping 5 years. Like right now, what's going on? Bridget is about to be married and she's having sort of like not cold feet, but kind of, it seems like. 8 or 9 days out from her wedding, goes back to PEI when they're supposed to go for like a dress fitting. And she calls her bestie Lucy, which is still in Toronto, and who is still in Toronto. And she's like, come to PEI with me, just be here with me, I need you right now. Lucy, being the best friend that she is, goes there. But then she hasn't spoken to Felix in like a year. Through flashbacks and stuff in the story, we sort of go through the last few years and what happened in those years. And all along, Bridget doesn't know that these two hooked up and have a history. So very spicy. Spicy in the sense of like it's your best friend's brother, younger brother, and also very spicy as in there is spice in this book. So if that's something you like, good. If not, so that was the summary of This Summer Will Be Different. So this book is definitely a story of friendship and the changes and complications that come with relationships that move into adulthood. So in that sense, it reminded me a lot of Happy Place, how relationships can change when you move into adulthood, how friendships can change throughout your 20s even. You're already an adult, but early 20s to late 20s to early 30s is very different sometimes, where you are in life. Maybe both of you were students at one point, and now one of you is well on in their career, and maybe one feels lost. So a lot of those themes reminded me of Happy Place. I don't have the book with me on hand, of course, but I do have a lot of notes I took while reading. So very early on, page 16, I wrote, okay, now we've got a summer book like I like them. Yum, yum, yum. So, you know, what I was looking for on the search of the perfect summer read, this is the type of book I imagined. Just fun, a good time. Very early on, you know, there's like this rom-com feeling. Like I love reading a book that makes me feel like I'm watching either a movie or a mini-series, or, you know, it very much has that rom-com vibe early on. And I was like, okay, I think this is setting me up for this type of book. But I was still like on my guards because the two previous books, although they were good, they started off the same way but went very much in a different direction. But I'm happy to say this one does stay in that direction. And also, it is, now I don't know if this is good or bad, I feel like Brittany Broski in that original kombucha meme that got her famous when I was reading this smut, because, well, I wrote page 94, and now I don't have the books, I don't remember exactly what was on that page. I wrote, yo, googly eyes, because the smut was more intense than I thought, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. That's for you to decide, but I was like, whoa, okay. This is that type of book. And again, I know myself, I do like spicy books once in a while, so I didn't have anything wrong with it, but I didn't expect, maybe because I read those two other books, I thought it was going to be more like a cutesy romance. There's definitely spice in this book. It's not like the most intense spice I've ever read, but there is some. So if you don't know that, now you do. I feel like sometimes we go into these books and we have no idea. Like, I didn't know. And it was just one of those like, oh, okay, I didn't expect this. I roll with it, but now you know, you're prepared. Some moments, again, typical rom-com fashion, you kind of know where the story is going to go. In some aspects of the story, you kind of know where it's going to go, and sometimes you feel like you know before the characters. You realize something that you're like, he or she should know this, but you go with it because you're not reading this to be surprised, really. You're reading it for the comfort of knowing what to expect, and it delivers on that, so I don't think that's an issue. I just noted at one point, I think I was getting annoyed by something. Also, I wrote, surprisingly, a good fall read as well. So this book I ended up reading it in October, but they also present the island like beautifully in October and tells you reason why it's so nice in the fall. So it was surprisingly a good fall read. And also one thing I did note is that as the book progressed, the spice I wrote on the second half, it felt like it was just there for me, perhaps unnecessary. Like during the tension building, I get it. It felt exciting because the characters aren't supposed to be together. So if you like that, it's like, ooh, exciting. Are they gonna get caught? Or like, how do they feel about this? How is the relationship progressing? But towards the end, sometimes authors maybe use the same methods they use to write the building portion as when they're together, but I feel like it's a different state, it's a different dynamic, and it's hard to nail that. But I feel like the smell in the second half didn't hit the same way it felt in the first half. I really just wanted to mention that, not a deal breaker at all, but something to note. And I think as the last note for this book, what really differentiated it to the others to me is that it delivered on what the book cover, I don't have it right now, but the book cover, the whole vibe, like what it promises the reader. The author's note at the end says it best: this book was just fun. It knew what it was and it executed it really well, in my opinion. She set out for it to be a light read, a fun read, something to get your mind off of real life, escape to PEI a little bit, discover the island with these characters, discover this relationship, their life in Toronto as well. So I don't know, I felt very much, I think the setting was very well done, whether it was in Toronto or in PEI. Of course, I'd have to ask the locals if it does it justice, but from an outsider's perspective, I felt like she did Toronto and PEI justice in that sense. As a flight attendant, I really love those, like, just those little scenes where they're taking the plane to go in these small places, because I know what type of aircraft it would be. It's something I would fly at work. So I felt like it was really, the airport scenes were really well written. I thought it was really fun, a good time. Not as deep, so again, it depends on what you're looking for, but if you click this video looking for the perfect like beach read, light, fun, a little spicy, a nice romance, likable characters, I think you'll really like This Summer Will Be Different. And bonus points, it's Canadian, and again, at times very predictable, stereotypical, follows the same tropes we're used to, but that's exactly why I picked up this book. It's the same way in my previous video when I mentioned why I like certain books just because they're entertaining. In this case, I was reading this to be entertained, to feel the summer vibes, and this book, I feel, encapsulates that perfectly in a nice, unique setting that is PEI and Toronto. And that is like older. Again, all these books are like adults also, so that's also a plus point for me. This is exactly where I'm in life, so to relate to the characters in that way, it always feels great. So that wraps up my little overview of these 3 beach reads / summer reads. And this book, I again binged it in 3 days, and I rated it a 4 out of 5. So all in all of them were over 3 stars, at least 3 stars. So they're all good books for different reasons, I hope. And they're all very similar in some ways, mostly just the setting though. I think Happy Place and Just for Summer have more in common in relation to their deeper themes and everything I've talked about. All 3 books have the settings in common and that vibe that you're looking for. Both of them have this found family vibe, very much exploring the different characters' relationship with other characters, not only the couple. This Summer Will Be Different does have that a little bit with the best friend Bridget, but it's mostly focused on mostly focused on Lucy, and I forgot to say his name. And Wolf. I forgot to say his name. His name is Felix, but everybody calls him Wolf, and that was cringy to me. I don't like that. I just don't like. If that's your nickname, sorry, I don't like Wolf as a nickname for a man. But that's just me. But on paper they're very similar, but as you can see, there's a lot of different things, and I think different readers will appreciate these books for different reasons. I hope I helped you shed light on what those differences are, and perhaps you'll know what your next beach read / summer read will be based on these reviews. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Well, for the reason I said, you might be disappointed in some of these books, but you'll be enlightened before reading them. You'll know what you'll be getting into. Yeah, that's it. So thanks for joining me today. It is, again, literally Halloween. I started filming this like at 11 a.m. It's 2:19 p.m. So I need to go eat. My next video is going to be about my fall reads. If you're interested, stay tuned. And in the meantime, I have 2 previous videos you can watch if you haven't already. So thank you so much once again for joining me today and for bearing with me. I hope it wasn't as long-winded as the other times. I'm only gonna get better at this, so let me know in the comments what you think of these books if you read them. If you haven't, did I convince you to read any of these, or did I rightfully steer you away from some based on your expectations of the book? And also, if you have any recommendations, as usual, please, I'm always open to more. So if you have recommendations, let me know in the comments below. All right, love you all. Bye. It's already blown out, but let's pretend.